Hi again. I've talked about obstructive sleep apnea for last few sessions, and I thought I will go back to a little bit something different. So I thought of doing something on consciousness. It is interesting because the consciousness, everybody knows about it, but if somebody asks what do you or how do you define the consciousness, they would have a hard time. So I thought that we will do some couple of videos on the consciousness and what are the current concepts in neurology or neurobiology or psychiatry or something like that. Sometimes people think that the consciousness is equal to the spirit, or in Hindu theology, Brahman, and I don't think they would be wrong. So I'm going to talk about some of these issues that come across many times in discussions, and one may not have a complete concept of this. One of the older Indian scriptures in Upanishad, one time a student was asked by the teacher that how do you see? For example, you're looking at a book or a pen or a TV. What is seeing? So the one was answer, of course, comes out is all eyes see the things, but is it really the eyes? Because eyes without the optic nerve would not be in position to see it, or eyes without the brain could not see it, and subsequently, so there has to be a neuronal intact system. But is it the nerves and is it the brain? Because sometimes your eyes are open, but you're lost in a thought and you don't see, even though it is right in front of your eyes. So is it really the eyes, or is it the optic nerve, or is it the occipital lobe where the centers are there? Are they seeing it? The answer is no, but then the answer comes back, well, the mind sees it. But mind is also not a seer, because, as I said to you before, anything which is seer should not be in position to be seen. So if I'm looking at a book, the book is different than me, and so certainly I am the observer, and the book is something which is observed. So sometimes when I think about my own mind, or anybody can think about mind, your mind may be agitated, your mind may be disturbed, your mind may be lost in thought, and we know that it was. So what is that we knows that the mind is changing? Again, if somebody can observe the mind, then mind becomes something which is observed, and observer is something different. So then somebody may say, well, intellect, but then we see intellect changing, and if I've never seen an aeroplane, or if I haven't seen something, I can't know even though I'm looking at it. And I also know that intellect changes. I may be forgetting things. I may not know how to operate a certain equipment or a computer program or something like that. So again, the intellect is not one which is seeing. So as you can see, these are subtler things. The book is an external object. The eyes are the sense organ. The mind is subtler than the sense organ. The intellect is subtler than the mind. So what is it that sees? And that's where the question comes in, is it the consciousness or the self or the I that is actually seeing the things? So people have tried to find out how is the consciousness different or separate from the physical body. And certainly we know that, because when somebody dies, there is no consciousness left in that dead body. When somebody is deep asleep and is having dreams, then also there is some mind and intellect working there. But when somebody has dreamless sleep, which occurs in non-REM sleep, is the mind asleep? because there is no thought? Yes. Is the intellect asleep? Yes. Is the consciousness asleep? Well, no, because consciousness knows that you had a sound sleep, undisturbed by the dreams. So the consciousness is always there as long as there is a living entity. So the consciousness is something which is an independent observer or a witness. It itself cannot be observed by anything else because then it becomes absurd, and that's not what is the consciousness. So essentially, consciousness is something which is equal to the life, the self, the I, or Brahman, or the spirit, or reflection of the Lord, as the theologians will say. So there are various ways to think about this. When you talk to different people have different thoughts about what is consciousness. So when you talk to the materialistic people who are atheists, who do not believe in existence of supreme power or God or a creator, they think that the matter somehow, magically, somehow, with some unknown chemical reaction, created the consciousness or the self or the life. And again, if you go back and look at it, people have said, well, when the current was passed through the dirt and or the RNA or the DNA or fragment of DNA was formed. But that's not what I'm talking about. DNA continues to exist even after you're died, or it is also present in your cells, which are outside your body, which can be analyzed. However, DNA does not constitute consciousness. The DNA is part of the matter, and consciousness is independent of matter. So DNA, even though it may have been created in a lab, or a piece of DNA may be created in a lab, it is not consciousness. The consciousness is still an independent entity. So for materialistics to say that consciousness comes out of matter, it is an imagination which has not been proved and which has no proof to it. But again, we can sometimes see these things complained or said to by giving some other example. I mean, if you take an example of a chemical reaction where two chemicals, when they are mixed and they looked like water or like clear or white, and the resultant has a color. Like, if you remember, when we used to test acidity and alkalinity, we used to add a solution and the color would change, and that will tell us what is the pH. So people will say, well, it was not there before, the color pink, because they were both white, but then turned out to be pink now. That is again not true, because the white color is made out of many colors. And again, chemical reactions are different than what actually is the life is. So for materialistic or atheist, the consciousness is coming out of matter by some kind of reaction. Though we don't know the reaction, we don't know how it is formed, and that's what it is. In contrast to that, for people that are God believer, which is entire number of religions, which is, of course, the Christianity, the Muslim, even the Jewish, and many others, the consciousness is an independent, and it created the matter. So the atheists believe the matter created the consciousness. The religious believer in God believe that consciousness created the matter. But then again, the question comes out as to how can consciousness create a matter when consciousness itself is not a matter? And the answer is, well, God is omnipotent, omnipresent, and he can do whatever he wants to do. And of course, there is no argument for it. But then there are other questions that arise with this particular theory. So there are two more options or theories, and we will discuss them in subsequent videos. Thank you for watching. If you like it, please subscribe. Have a nice day.